3.01, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 3.02, approval of agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. 4.01, approval and modification of minutes from the November 5th, 2025 Governing Board meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. 4.02, approval modification of minutes for the November 5th, 2025 executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam President, I just realized I should probably abstain from these two.
Right,
I
because you
wasn't
weren't
here.
there.
I
Yep.
apologize for that.
So I'm going to, abstain. I was just thinking that too when he, so all those, no discussion, or we just had discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Aye from 4, motion passes. Item 5.01, approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I'd like to thank Art and Chris Lebowitz for their generous donation to Scales Technology Academy. Item 6.01, Celebrate Excellence. I'll turn it over to you, Superintendent Dr. Driscoll.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight I have a few items to celebrate. Congratulations to Tempe Elementary School's Fine Arts Coordinator, Courtney Darby, for receiving the 2025 Supervision/Administration Division Outstanding Art Educator Award, an honor presented by the Arizona Art Education Association. This recognition is a testament to Courtney's dedication to providing access to quality art education across the district. Arizona State Senator Lauren Kuby and State Representative Brian Garcia visited Connolly Middle School to speak with 8th graders about the legislative branch of government. After sharing their inspiration for getting into politics, the legislators opened the floor, inviting students to ask questions about their journeys in politics and in general. Both Senator Kuby and Representative Garcia represent the Tempe area in the 8th District. Representative Garcia is a McCamey alum. We want to take this moment to celebrate Ward Traditional Academy for receiving the Blue Ribbon School designation. This is an incredible honor that was only shared with 5 other schools in the entire state of Arizona. This distinction is earned through a rigorous month-long application process in which school leaders must demonstrate sustained high performance, articulate systems that drive student success, and provide clear evidence of effective instruction, strong culture, and continuous improvement. And one of the things that's different about the Blue Ribbon is the state has to actually say, yes, you can go for this. In years past, you used to can just apply. You actually have to be chosen by the state to even apply for it. So it's a huge honor. So congratulations to Ward. And that concludes my Celebrate Excellence for this evening.
7.01, presentation of student achievement. I will turn this over to Dr. Ashley Hargrave, Director of School Leadership and Federal Programs.
President Ewers, governing board members, Dr. Driscoll, I'm very happy to be here with you this evening. My hope is to just give you the overview of our A through F school letter grades, which is Arizona's system of accountability for our schools. Now, I learned long ago that you cannot go wrong with a presentation if you start with a really cute kid.
Okay.
So I'm just going to give you an insight into how our letter grades are composed, how schools can earn each of the components, and then we'll go a little more specific into our historical data. So a typical school, their letter grade is going to be based on 100 total points, 100%. That is composed of, you'll see 30% of that is proficiency from our state assessment, the AASA, as well as the alternate assessment, MSAA. So we have some special ed students that take the alternate assessment. Proficiency on both of those goes into the 30 points. Growth is the largest portion of the letter grade. That's 50%, and that is based solely on AASA. We don't use the alternate assessment because the student population count is too low to standardize. They can also earn points, 10% of that 100. It comes from AZELA, our state assessment for our English learning students, and that is made of proficiency and growth, as well as 10% of that 100 comes from acceleration and readiness. I'll go further into detail with that in a moment. Now, this is the model for schools that have at least 10 English learner students. So that we call it the N count. They have to have at least 10 or more qualifying students to be eligible for that 10%. Otherwise, if schools do not have that population, which many across the state do not, their total is calculated out of 90 and then converted to the 100%. So they're not penalized for not having that subgroup. They just can't earn points that students aren't taking that test. So proficiency, going into that 30%, this is based on our full academic year students. So students who start with us within the first 10 days, and they're here all the way through the testing window. Those students in 3rd through 8th grade who take the state assessments are given proficiency points towards our scores. Now, there's one of two methods. The state runs both methods of calculations and then awards the higher of the two. But one way that we can calculate proficiency is through a single year snapshot. Let's just look at everyone this year who tested, and we'll give them the weight accordingly. The other method two, is the stability model, where they weight students based on the number of years that they've been at the site and have been full academic year, with the idea being if I've been here for 1 year, the school has really invested in me 1 year of growth and time, where if I've been at the school 3 years, the school is very responsible for my success. So as students are in a system longer, they get a higher weight because ideally we would be doing great things and improving them each year. Otherwise, sometimes we get students mid-year, we get students for the first time ever, and we haven't had as much to do with their success. In terms of either method, the scores come with weights that vary. Minimally proficient score, we do not get a proficiency point for. That's considered not passing. If a student is partially proficient, they're approaching the standard, they get counted with a multiplier of 0.6, so they still get some credit towards the letter grade score. Proficient would be more proficient than partially, so they get the full 1.0 multiplier. And then for our highly proficient students who are well exceeding the standard, they are met with a multiplier of 1.3. So you take all of our students, take their proficiency rates, throw those multipliers in, and that's how the total proficiency score is calculated. With one more caveat, we are required to test 95% or more of our students. We can't just say, oh, this class was really great this year, this class wasn't, so we'll test these and they'll get great scores. We have the obligation to test at least 95% or more of our enrolled kids, with the understanding, people are absent. We do our best to do makeup tests. And so then all of those weighted scores are put together, put through another formula, with the idea that anything less than 95% of the enrolled students, if it is less than that, it does reduce the proficiency score. So it's not helpful if you don't test at the correct level. 50% of the letter grade is based on student growth. And I have two graphics here just to explain the two components for you. Historically, the growth score has been made up of these two different ways to measure growth. So the first being the single student on the side student growth target. That growth measure was looking at one student and how they were progressing on the path to mastery. So are they on track to get them where we need them to be? That was not included this year. Whatever reason, the business rules and the committee that meets, that was removed from calculations. So the full growth percentile is based solely on this other side of the method, which is student growth percentile. This is all relative to peers, and you'll find it as a theme with growth points throughout, that all of this is relative to peer sets. So if you look at that visual, I want you to imagine all of these students the prior year started at the same starting line. So everyone in this group got a 48. So everyone starting at 48, then they start to run and they progress in different ways. That student growth percentile, we're measured against the same like peer group, and then it's sorted into low growth. So some of our lighter gray students in that pack they haven't progressed very far. Average growth, your middle of your peer group, or high growth, where the red image is on the higher end. They're far outpacing their same like group of peers. So that is how the growth has been calculated this year. Talked a little bit already about the English learners, but when a school has 10 or more English learner full academic year students, they're eligible to earn up to 10% of that letter grade. It is broken into two components, both worth 5 points. The first being proficiency. Very simply, did they pass? Did we move a student from English learner to a proficient English student? So that is relatively simple, and that gets calculated based on number of kids we have take the test and how many become proficient. The other half of that, the 5% for growth, is a little more complex and once again relative to peer groups. So first we look at a school, how many students took the test. And then we look at where students started. Did I start as a pre-emergent student with very little language, and did I grow by 1 level of proficiency? Did I grow by 2 levels? Did I grow by 3? And each of those I get additional points for. So if I have a little bit of growth, I get some. If I have leaps and bounds, I get more weight. And then it's all average based on my school site. Now the problem comes in, I could have great growth with my group at my site, but it is then compared to the state average. So they do the same with all students across the state and calculate the state average. If we are above the state average, we get the full 5 points. And then relative to each standard deviation, we are off of the state average, we move down in point level. So I'll go into that a little bit more with our specific data set. Acceleration readiness, again, it's 10 points available at a cap for the letter grade, but there's actually quite a few more points available within it to earn. So if your school has 8th grade on campus, you're eligible for 2.5 points. If you increase your math performance, your number of highly proficient students in math, you are also eligible for 2.5 more points if you decrease minimally proficient 8th grade students. Since we know that Algebra 1 is the number one reason that students drop out of high school, 8th grade math is a priority, and it's an important feature, a focus within the letter grade of why those points would be available to that. Similarly, we know that 3rd grade reading is a critical foundation. So schools that have 3rd grade and are able to reduce the number of students minimally proficient, they're eligible for 5 points as well. Special education is unique in that either you have a lot or you have a lot. And so if you are including a lot of your students for SPED inclusion, what that looks like is the level A students who spend 80% or more of their time in the general education population, but perhaps just receive some minor pull-out classes for resource. that would be SPED inclusion, and that is our percent of the population compared to the state. If we are including at or above the state average, schools can earn 2 points. Now, being a former principal with special regional programming on my site, I knew that that could be very difficult, having 4 classrooms of self-contained level C students. I would think to myself, man, I can never get those points, but there are actually other ways so that campuses with those programs are not penalized with school letter grades. So there are other ways. Even still within this, if you think 8th grade, I can get 5 points, 3rd grade, I can get 5 points, SPED inclusion is 2. If I reduce my chronic absenteeism on campus, that's another 2 points available. And then the subgroup section, so all of the subgroups that my campus has, the appropriate 10 student end count, I can earn 2 points for improving math and ELA for every subgroup that is eligible, and that gets capped at 6. So if you consider you can get a lot of points from all your subgroups up to 6, and then you can get all of these other points, there's actually more than 10 available. So if there is something on your campus that doesn't lend to certain points, there's still options. So this is kind of a potpourri of point opportunities with this area. Back to the special education, this is where in the bonus, not counted in that original 100 points, if your school has a high population of special education enrollment, based, again, compared against the school's percent to the statewide average, if you have a higher percent, perhaps you have one of the regionalized programs, you can earn additional bonus points here, 0, 1, 1.5, or 2, based on how you compare to the state. Additionally, there's also a science proficiency bonus area. This has to do with our full academic year 5th and 8th grade students. Again, requires that 95% tested of the enrolled students, but those points, when compared to the statewide average, you can earn 0, 1.5, or 3. So those are all the different ways that we can add up points. If you scan across the state, there are actually schools that earn more than 100 points and then get capped at the 100. So because of all these options that are available with the bonus points, there's ways to far exceed what is necessary. This number, I want you to think about your experience in K-12 education and traditional grades. You likely earned an A for a 90%. 80 to 89, you likely earned a B, and so on. So you may look at this 79.98 and think, gosh, if this professor is not the nicest and they're not going to round up, this looks like a C to me. That is not how our cut scores work for the letter grade system. This is our average total points as a district across all the schools that they could earn 100. The average is 79.98, which puts us squarely at a B. To earn an A in the state letter grade system, you need an 84 and above. A B is 72 to that 83.99, and below that, and so on and so forth, C, D, from there. So I'd like to talk to you more about our specific historical data. Our proficiency is actually increased slightly across the last 4 years. So looking at 2022, remember it's out of those 30 points. In 22, we were at a 14.21 right there, and we have had a little bit of increase to now, which we're at 16.3. So about two points improvement in the proficiency area. As far as growth, you can see that in 22, we actually started very close to that full 50. We were at 47.5. And then we had a little dip, and we're on our way back up with 2025. We're at 44.98. Again, I just want to remind you with each of the slides that incorporate the growth component, it's relative because it's compared to others. It's not a straightforward, did our students grow from what they did before? It's did they grow in an adequate way when compared to like peers? And there's a lot of different factors that play into that. So those are our growth numbers. EL proficiency and growth points. There has been a decline, but I do want to just point out it looks steeper than it actually is. This is composed of those two pieces. Again, like I mentioned, the EL proficiency and the EL growth points. And when breaking it down, we've actually maintained a fairly steady proficiency rate. 4 out of 5 across the last handful of years, we've stayed at that level with proficiency. Where we've really hit a drop this year was with the growth side of the 5 points. And that also has to do with the state average. So I just want you to have that context, because when we look at 2023, the state average was 0.34. So we were above that by 4. And then in 2025, the state average went from 0.3 to 0.5, and ours didn't, if we were in between, we kind of were skewed by the jump in the state. So not to say that we grew a lot, but we still, it's skewed by whatever happens in the state changes what is happening to our scores. But our proficiency rates have stayed relatively flat. And then lastly, the acceleration and readiness points, the average across the district. In 2022, we were at the 9.2 level. And in 2025, we're ending with the 8.4. The points that were primarily lost by schools have to do with that SPED inclusion. So the 2 points there. And fortunately, as you know, we've recently conducted our special education audit. One of the comments suggesting that we review our inclusion practices. And so I feel like we've already started to look at ways to make a change for that in this coming letter grade year. The other piece where schools often lost points was the chronic absenteeism. As you know, we can make every effort and use every strategy available to us to help get our students to school, to help families by reducing barriers. But at the end of the day, if a student misses 10, even if we improve for the rest of the year, if they missed the 10%, they count as chronically absent. So that's an area where schools were also losing points. That's kind of all I have for you on this, and then I'll let you ask me any questions, as long as they're easy ones.
Mrs. Windsor?
Thank you, Mrs. Ewers. Dr. Hargrave, excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to see proficiency rates up, even with the change in formula. I did want to ask about the growth graph. It's hard for me to say. So, yep, okay, she's going to go right to it. Perfect. So just so that nope, 2 more. There we go. So just so that I understand what you explained about how growth points are calculated, the first 3 points for 22 through 24 would have included that student growth target, and then that was removed for the 25 school year.
Correct.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask Ms. Denton a question about chronic absenteeism and everyday labs. So I know that we've invested heavily in that, and yes, when I get a letter, I do walk the path of shame. But I was wanting to know if the data that we're getting from them is showing any sort of improvement in, like, either, not necessarily raw numbers, but maybe like even engagement from parents, or,
I can also,
oh yeah.
we've talked about this one a lot together.
Yes, Ashley and I actually talked about this when the letter grades came out, because it's really 2 distinct measures. So the calculation on this is based on those kids with 18 days. And where you get penalized for that. We are making great improvements with overall chronic absenteeism. However, we still got dinged on this side of it. The piece that I think is important too for this is you had to make change over the previous year. In the first year that we did our Everyday Labs push, we made great gains. We decreased chronic absenteeism by about 10%, which was phenomenal. But then what happens is once you decrease it by 10%, if you nudge up slightly, you lose the points on this side. So the effort is on. They know how important this is. But yes, really two different measures measuring the same topic, if you will. Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question, but then the second layer to that is I know that the state has changed the funding, and I can't remember what the term is.
Yes.
Unfundable period.
Yes.
Non-fundable periods. Can you,
Yes, so we're actually, Eric and I have met to look at that, and that is yet a third measure of how chronic absenteeism is calculated. So we've met for the first time looking at those students and talking about the trends around those students. So at last time we counted, we had about 30 students that fell into the non-fundable category for a window of time. Some of them completely dropped off and didn't return to us. Others were unfunded for a period of time. Then they resumed school, and so they became funded again. So we're keeping our eye on that as well.
and I think
Will
we
you-
probably need an explanation
Will
of
you
that for the
explain
board.
that to Eric or Cindy? Explain the non-fundable kid.
And it's brand new, right,
It's brand
this
new
year?
this year.
Yes, so go ahead, Eric. Rock, paper, scissors on this.
So if a student is absent for 10 consecutive days, so in the past, if you're absent 10 consecutive unexcused absences, the district would be required to drop you. Now, if you have an excused absence, in the past, districts would be continued to be paid for that. So you could be absent for whatever excused reason, and we get paid on membership. So whether you go to school or not, it doesn't matter. We get paid. That's how it was before. They have implemented it now where if you have a period of time that you're absent for 10 consecutive days, even if it's excused, the state will retroactively go back and say, okay, well, this period, they missed 14 consecutive days. We're not going to fund you for those 14 days. So if they are absent for 9 days and they come in on the 10th day, then we get the full funding. So 10 days, if you figure the base support level is 5,113 and you're missing 10 days, I think it was like $500-ish for that window for funding that we're not getting for that, if it's just the 10 days. But it could be 20 days. So we saw a good number of students maybe taking an extra week before the fall break and then maybe 2 weeks after fall break. And so those 15 days would go into that unfunded period.
Do chronically ill students get exempt from that?
They do get exempt from that.
Okay, and then is that part of the plan for those kids that we do know are ill regularly to actively seek chronically ill letters?
Yes, so actually, some of the kids that fell into that category, I looked up the excuses in Synergy to see why they might have been absent and then sent those numbers to the chronic absence team to make sure that those kids had chronic absence forms on file. So
Perfect.
yes, I'm working on that.
And my last question about chronic absenteeism, since I know this is important to at least one of our two audience members, if a student leaves for like ceremony on reservation land, and that often takes place over a period of time, is there any state exemption for those students?
Not that I'm aware. What we do is when children are absent for religious purposes or illness or bereavement, whatever it might be, we count those as excused absences, but they still count towards days absent.
So as of right now, the state does not recognize a student who has religious or cultural reasons to be gone.
That is my understanding.
Okay, that's what I understood as well. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dr. Hargrave.
Mr. Lemon?
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Hargrave, great. You know, when I saw this information and
Thank you.
briefed it this weekend, it was good. And then you reminded me that I have one question on proficiency. and we talk about the points, highly proficient, 1.3, how many students roughly? Is that school-wide or district-wide?
That is a great question.
The
one-
highly proficient, how many?
It is very small number in our district. I could get it for you. It is less than, I want to say less than 5%. I want to say less than 5%, district-wide.
I don't have it all broken down, but that would be easy to get for you. But not many.
It's one of the things that I tell people it's a mathematical game with the proficiency, because when I was a principal, I would look at saying, I called it blue. If I can get more students in highly proficient than I had in minimally proficient and partially proficient, we got closer to 1. So I always, and what I would tell our staff is, if you see our numbers, if we just moved our minimally proficient students to partially proficient, our proficiency score would go up even, it would skyrocket. Because if you look at our numbers, we have a ton of students that score minimally proficient. And so just that move, one, would get us proficiency, but guess what it also would do? It would get us growth. And so that's the devil in the details of not getting, it's like getting a 0 on your grade. When you get a 0, it's like you just drop. But if you got a D or you got 20 points, the drop isn't as much. That's what it happens for us with that minimally proficient. So the highly proficient, if you do it right, if you have more students get highly proficient than you have minimally proficient, you almost get 1 point, because the 0.3 plus the 0.6 gets you almost that 1 point proficient.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Any more discussion from the board? Okay, and just so the board knows, my 1980 little arrow thing here has completely conflunked on me. So just, if you need to speak, okay? With that said, so I have been on fire for like the last 3 weeks, and it all came down to this, and not with you guys at all. But I don't want what I'm about to say reflect on not understanding our growth and where we're going and our mission and all of that, right? I am blessed to have a job that allows me to go see the schools and be there and look at traffic lines and go in, and yes, I do kind of peek at how many people are coming in late. And I find out from the kids and my son who doesn't show up. Like, they know, they miss their friends, they want to see them, right? And I also know that the district and the people in this room have reimagined how we engage our families and how now we help them, right? Instead of before, like if I wasn't at school, my mom would get a nastygram and say, get your act together and get your kid to school, right? Wow, we have opened up and changed our way of what we do, and I'm grateful because it's with more empathy and compassion for others, and we know that there's people who are going through things. But I'm also over 50, so I'm very old school, and I believe you should get your kids to school. Now, when I say that, I do understand that there's issues at home. I do understand that we have families who have food insecurity, who have home insecurity, who have all of these factors, and that our principals are conscious of it, that our staff is conscious of it. And I also understand that we have a lot of services here, and we have a community who will wrap around whatever that kid needs. I don't know, like, that the Thai Foundation has ever let us down when we've said, oh my God, we have this need, we need it, or community members or food banks or all of that stuff, right? So I understand the reasons for. But where I'm getting really, really frustrated, and I knew it was going to show up on here, because, right, it's been getting worse. It hasn't been getting better. It just is. Because I'm able to see it every single day when I walk into some schools, and I see the lines after the school bells ring, and they're longer every single day. And my concern is that in this next week, we're going to have 2 days of school, right? And I'm like, ooh, the kids are going to be crazy. They're going to be ready for the holiday and Thanksgiving and thinking about, what's coming up with Hanukkah and Christmas and whatever. You know what some teachers said to me today, and they're exactly right? I just hope they show up. We just want them to show up. So here we go, grandmas, grandpas, moms, dads. And this is I'm going to get Twittered out all over the place on this, but I'm going to say it, okay? Every minute that your kid is late, I'm going to be selfish on this comment, it disrupts my student that was there on time, that when they came into the classroom, they had a bit of disruption and learning loss. One. Number two, that teacher has to start all over again. So frankly, it's pretty selfish. And if I knew that all of these things were happening because of things that we have been aware of and are helping our families with, I wouldn't be able to have the conversation with you. But I know that it's because somebody got up late or they didn't feel like taking their kid to school, or there's only 2 days of school this week, so why should we go? Or it's raining outside. There happens to be some, the roads are going to be a little crazy. Nobody knows how to drive in Arizona, so I'm not going to take my kid to school. I have heard literally every single one of those things. Now, education in this country is special. This is a privilege. I have traveled around many countries that don't offer public education. And it's really, really evident that they don't. These are societies that are taken advantage of. They have an uneducated society that is told what to do, how to live. When I was in Brazil, they're living in literally cardboard homes. So they look at us and say, what the heck? So I did the numbers. After I saw this, I did the numbers. And the number, I'm going to be so conservative, Eric, and you can tell me if I'm not so conservative, but I'm going to be so conservative. I'm going to just look at how much we get, right? How much it costs. We already know that costs more than what we get. So I'm going to say how much we get. And the little things, let's say they get school lunch. They get school breakfast, and maybe they have a music program or they do something after school and we pay the teacher a little bit more. On average, the community, all these people, our neighbors, our friends, everybody that we work with in this community, we all pay into a system so that these children, our children, can go to school. On the low end, we pay $70,000 to get them through this process. Low end, not giving them anything else, $70,000. I have witnessed twice in my life at an auction where somebody gave $70,000. I can guarantee all of us in this room don't know people who will just walk up and give you money. Just give it to you. Somebody gives me $70,000, I'm showing up. I'm going to do what they wanted me to do. I'm going to be involved. I'm going to be in this, right? I'm going to be in it to win it. Somebody just gave me $70,000 worth of something. And these scores are being highly, highly affected by it. Not just by the ding of 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, but the ding of not showing up, by the ding of not coming for 10 days, by the ding of we give you 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and things happen. Things happen. I've had to take my son out because my aunt died. I've had to do things. I totally get it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about things that happen. I'm talking about choices that the adults are making for the children in their lives. And it's affecting all of our kids. So please, get them to school on time. It should be affecting you too. Get them to school on time. It's the safest place that they can be every single day. And let them take care of things later with the education they have now. And if you have a need where you are going to be late or you have something that keeps you from getting them there, please call here and ask for help or let your principal know, because I'm fortunate. I know the programs we have. We're fortunate because we get to hear that. But that's not what's happening anymore. And we're sitting up here deciding if we're not going to give our teachers raises. Just this week, I just want you to know, I was on a call federally, $890 million being cut quite possibly from ELL, $4 billion from rural education, literacy education, student achievement, and extra resources for teachers to learn and adapt. We're looking at the Title III funding, American for Disability Act's cut. This is some serious stuff. We all need to stand up as parents and say, we want this for our kids. We need this for our kids. We're going to show up to show you that we need it and we want it and we appreciate it. And for the 3 people who are hearing this speech tonight, please tell another person and tell another person and help us out here. Because I don't think Dr. Driscoll has ever said, like, no. I don't think I've ever heard you guys say no. We'll say, let us see what we can do for you. But now you're affecting my kid's life, my neighbor's money that's going in. You're abusing it. If you show up late and you had truly no reason to show up late with your kid, and that kid didn't have the availability to make that decision themselves, that is what's getting on my nerves. And I'm sorry. But step it up. Talk to the organizations you're in. Talk to the people that you are friends with. We all have that friend that gets them there late every single day or 3 days a week because they want to get an espresso on the way to school. We all have that person. That sounds crazy to me. But please, like, I'm not saying that's going to make this miracle. I'm not blaming anybody for all of this. We know that there's changes we need to make, but we also know where we can make them and where we are making them. But if we don't have them in our care custody control, we can't do anything about this. And I would bet to tell you that the people who are in the lower proficiency that we can't get up in proficiency are the ones who don't come to school who can't get proficient. Thank you for hearing me out. Please, somebody listen to this and share it with somebody else. Because we'll do everything we can, and this board will support Dr. Driscoll in everything he needs to keep making this better. And that's not, I know, I didn't mean to just bleh on you, but it's part of this whole thing. And it is something that we could change with a light switch tomorrow. Community, parent, responsibility, let's take it on. It's not federally, it's not in the federal constitution that we are going to educate society. In our state constitution it is. That can be turned off at any point. And you know what? When you lose something, you're wishing that you could have told somebody how important it was to you before you did. Is there any more discussion? Thank you, guys. I'll never be voted president again. Oh, security. Woo. Sorry. Woo. I promise to not get so fired up. Item 7.02, school safety update. Mr. Stephen Carbajal will share his update.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll. Just quick transparency note from me. As I knew I was going to present the same night as Dr. Hargrave, we had some playful banter about who should go first. I let her go first, and being transparent, I'm regretting that decision now. But here I am with a safety update nonetheless, right? So I recently had the opportunity to present at the district general admin meeting a safety update. And I think this graphic that, again, was created by Dr. Hargrave, allowed me to kind of put some things in perspective, right? But one thing that I want to share, and these are all in line with the Armored One assessment. And my intention tonight is not, again, to rehash a lot of those things. I think you guys are familiar with that. But I do want to share a story from that, if I may. So right before the assessors were to leave town, of course, we were antsy and anxious to hear what were the results? What did you think of the district? What did you find? And not see it blindly in a report a few weeks later, right? So we sat in this very room. I still remember it was April 30th, about 8:30 in the morning. And we sat at the table, and it was Mr. Mangini and I and the 2 assessors on the other side of the table. And the lead assessor, Travis Forrester, who's presented to the board here, he's sat there. It was a brief silence, and he says, "You know what I found?" And we're like, "Please, that's what we're here for." He says, "You have a culture problem." And silence. And I think if you could probably knock Mr. Mangini out of his chair with a feather at that moment. And I'm new to the district, less than a month or so, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this problem? And he said, "Your culture problem is you're too kind." And I said, wow, well, I actually felt like refreshed. I go, well, that's not a bad problem to have, that we have kind staff and we have kind children and we have kind people around our schools, right? So I wanted to present that to you just to kind of say, and we're going to go into this a little bit more, but that's what we're trying to do, is maintain kindness, but also with an eye towards safety and security. So that's the challenge that I'm working on right now. So just a brief thing on this slide here that you see, emergency preparedness and lockdowns, and I think I mentioned this to you before, but we are in the process of getting the ball rolling on changing our protocol slightly. I mentioned in the last meeting, I think the I Love You Guys Foundation, we're really starting to hit the road with that and getting that changed out. It's really gonna be minimal impact. It's just gonna change one protocol out for another and adding one that I think has relevance. So that's how that's gonna be moving forward here. So again, the district is filled with kindness, right? And I know there's been a lot of emotion tonight and a lot about money and a lot about how we're doing things. But ultimately, with the bond passing recently, I know people kind of use the words like, oh, they support us. They're supporting the district. They're supporting our schools. And in my brain, as I build these programs out, I kind of rephrase that a little bit, and I say that they're trusting us. And I think that that's an important distinction, because they're trusting us to keep children safe. So we don't want to change our kindness culture, obviously, but we want to add layers of safety. And I've kind of used this quote, at least to kind of keep me on track. And it's kindness is our culture, but safety is our responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility, really, right, to keep schools safe. So we'll talk about camera expansion. That's been like the main project that we've been working on, or probably the highest priority right now. And the overview is we're exploring a district-wide program for the camera platform. Anybody that's been to the sites or seen the technology that we're dealing with now, it's definitely in need of an upgrade. So the advantages of this upgrade would be 4K high-definition video quality, cloud-based system, faster and more simple video retrieval, scalable for future growth and integration, and then also user-friendly interface for school and district staff. So it's really going to save a lot of time. Right now, the process, if staff or anybody wants to get into a video and say, hey, we had an incident in the cafeteria, it takes hours. And then we should be able to cut that time down to literally minutes under this new technology. So Dr. Driscoll asked us to kind of come up with an estimate. So in order to upgrade the cameras district-wide, we're looking at an estimated amount of money around $3.5 million. But that would be upgrading every site, including the Bustos, including Brogan, including all those other sites, not just the educational sites, but the professional development sites as well. So secure lobbies, I've talked about that as well. So myself and the director of facilities have walked all the sites, and we assessed those and to see what changes need to be done to secure those. I put an approximate cost bullet here, but there's not an exact number because it depends on what we do to those sites, right? We made recommendations, but each site could be anywhere from a few $100,000, up into that higher range, closer to $1 million, depending on what's needed. And again, if you've been through the schools, there's some schools I won't mention by name, but they're challenging to secure the lobbies, to say the least, right? But the goal is to create secure, welcoming front entrances that prevent unauthorized access, and that's really the key. We've had so far 7 incidents of unauthorized access to schoolyards outside of hours and things like that, but having the cameras there would really be able to, again, assist police with investigations, and we could set up alerts to let us know that people are in our whether fenced yards or even buildings, of course. And we want to ensure visitor screening occurs before entrance into main areas. So that's a really big thing right now too, is it kind of leads us into visitor management, and that's something that we're trying to pilot right now, is who's coming into our schools, and what do we know about the people that are coming into our schools? And I know it's going to be a big change for people, but I think we're at the point in time in 2025 where it's needed. And most of the companies that we've spoken with that will do this, they'll check some basic databases, sex offender databases, Interpol, some FBI checks, but I think it's past time to know who's coming into our schools and what their history might be or what danger they might pose. And there's some integration with Synergy for custody and restriction alerts, and it supports reunification, and it's along the lines of the I Love You Guys Foundation as well, because visitor management leads into reunification, because if there were to be a critical incident at our school, we need to know who's in the building and to make sure that we account for everybody. And right now, and I've mentioned this before, but the paper sign-in sheets are not what we need during an emergency. All right, so pilot opportunities, we're looking at camera expansion like I spoke about. And the talk has been, well, Conley and Curry will be that site, right? That'll be the place where we'll do this. But chronologically, there's a big gap now between Conley and Curry being rebuilt. It's July of 2027. And what are we going to do in the interim to make sure that we're piloting cameras and making sure that we have the right equipment for our staff for safety purposes? And again, lobby security, we're also piloting that as well. to see what that looks like. But we are looking at different sites to try to pilot that and at least secure some lobbies and see how that protocol works moving forward. That's really all I have on that. Again, not to rehash everything about the Armored One, but really just to give you a picture of where we're at. And I think it's an exciting time as we're really starting to gain traction and start moving some of these programs forward. But any questions? No?
Mr. Cherry?
I just want to say thank you for doing this. Safety is the number one thing that we do, and then everything else is a distant second. The most important thing we do is keep our kids safe. So thank you for doing all of this. Thank you for the work that you do. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I agree, thank you. I just said that the kids being in our schools is the safest place they can be. And I mean it in so many ways, and I'm grateful that you're ahead of this. You're doing phenomenal work, and I'm grateful for it. We know that there's some improvements that we need to make, and you're continually making them. I'd like to thank the community for supporting these changes. I'd like to thank the city of Tempe, the RTOC Center, with these upgrades and cameras. We'll be able to connect with them. This is good. Now, my question for the people who come into our schools, what type of system are you looking at that would be able to, how quickly would that process? Like, if we have to have a visitor at a school, do we have to have them do something 3 weeks, 3 months before they come in?
No.
The day of, or what? How does that look?
So it would really be like the first time they come into the site, they would just have to show a driver's license. It takes like a picture of their face. It compares that to the driver's license front and back picture. And then once they've done that for the first time, they're in the system. And then it makes each visit easier. But if we were to have, let's say a school play or something like that, there's a lot of different ways we can do that. We can send that out ahead of time and let people kind of put themselves in the system. There can be a QR code that people can just walk by and scan as they come in. But there are ways to do that in larger groups versus individuals as well.
I feel like you're going to hit Twitter with me too on that, but important, really important.
Why would I hit Twitter?
Well, because there's going to be people out there, they're going to do photo recognition on me when they go in to see my kids play. I get to see it right now. Well, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know who's around my kid all the time. I think all of us would. So, yeah, I'd like to learn more about what options there are, and then but that's what you said, we're doing this pilot program, because
Yeah.
that's big stuff.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear about something, and this is a direction from Dr. Driscoll, and it's an important distinction to make, and again, it's something I shared with the general admin meeting, was we're not buying things just to buy things. We're not spending money just to spend money. We're being purposeful and intentional with how we're spending money and what we're spending our money on. And we're doing due diligence. We're checking other school districts and saying, what are you doing? What are you using? How's it worked for you? And everybody has an opinion, right, about the system they have, whether they like it or don't like it. But I think until we actually try it out in a school environment, I think that there's a lot to gain from that testing.
I do get the question, I did get a question on it because it was on our agenda. There's several districts who are now using, what do you call it when you go through at the airport? What does it say? Metal detectors. And they says, oh, is he going to talk about metal detectors tonight? In middle school or whatever. I didn't hear anything about that in here. Do you have any insight on that?
I mean, it's something that we talked about, but it's not something that we've really vetted through vendors or anything like that. I think that requires a lot of resources, and I don't know that we're necessarily seeing that, seeing those problems like we have seen at the high school, at higher ed. But again, I think that's something that we can definitely research, but it is part of the grander safety plan. But for now, it's step by step by step, right? And I think it's identifying the most important things, and those cameras are huge, and vetting who comes into the school is huge. I think those, in my opinion, are the top priorities right now.
Excellent, thank you.
There's a little shock when you put metal detectors in schools, especially at our age with middle schools. Like a lot of the high schools across the board, across the East Valley, they have metal detectors now and stuff like that. I think there's things that we can do without going to that. But I would tell you, the way our society is going, it's not going to be long before people are going to be asking us, why don't we have them in schools? But our goal is right now, no, there's different things we can do to make our schools be schools and safe without having that hardening, I call it hardening of it, on our campuses. But there might be a time where we come back to you because the community is saying we want our schools to even be more safe and more hardened, and that. So type thing. And we can't share it publicly, but we have a video of a school and what the metal detector didn't go off.
Yeah.
And how an employee was saved by asking questions where a person had a knife coming in and said the words, "I want to kill her. Should I kill her? Should I kill her?" And it was on the video. And like, had the person not followed the protocol and been kind and said, "Oh yeah, I'll let you in to go, your daughter use the restroom," they probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, and I can expand on that a little bit. It was a little bit after hours. I think the metal detection was off, but it was just like Dr. Driscoll explained. A gentleman walks into the lobby and he says, "Hey, can I use the restroom? My daughter needs to use the restroom, actually." And how many of our staff or how many people maybe in this room would say, "Oh, sure, of course, yeah, come on in." But he had a knife behind his back and had that conversation with himself. And the quote was, "Should I kill her? I think I'm going to have to kill her." There's no doubt in my mind after seeing that video, had she opened that door, she would have been stabbed to death. So.
Mrs. Windsor.
I just want to clarify, not on one of our campuses.
Correct, not on one of our campuses.
Not on
That's
one of
correct.
ours.
Different district, yes, different district.
Thank you. Okay. Any more questions? Thank you. Oh, yeah, Mr. Miller.
This technically might be a question for Mr. Thompson, not to keep bullying him.
Sure.
But you mentioned the cost associated with some of these things, and we were going over fiscal stuff earlier.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify that these would be paid with bond dollars and not M&O money. For the public.
Yes.
They heard about possible cuts being needed, but different pots. So.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. 8.01, open call to the public. I don't see any blue cards. So going to 9.01, discussion, consideration, and possible approval to modify superintendent's contract. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the modification of the superintendent's contract.
Second?
Second.
Open for discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. 9.02, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy JFB, open enrollment. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the changes to governing board policy JFB, open enrollment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam President, I have a question.
Excellent, Mr. Lemon.
When I was reading it about, thank you. When I was reading, I've forgotten what page it is, but it's application and notification of procedures, paragraph F, a student placed on a waiting list but not accepted during a school year shall be required to apply for open enrollment for the following school year, if they want to be admitted. The shall is, it's not may. So I just had a problem with that because it's a mandate.
Mrs. Windsor?
Mr. Lemon, I have the same question about that very phrase. And if I recall correctly, it was because if we do not have that, then a student can stay on the wait list indefinitely, and then you could apply super early. Correct?
Yeah. So what happens is, without having that language, say you apply to be on the wait list to go to McCamey. By not having the stipulation that it's for that year, you would stay on that wait list. So you could theoretically have a kid as a kindergartner and say, "I'm gonna get on the wait list to be at McCamey," and be there and have a spot locked in when really you're applying for the actual year for which you're attending. That's what open enrollment is. You're going and saying, "Hey, I want you to go to your school this year." If you get in, you get in. If you don't, then there's a wait list to say, "Here, you get it." But after that year, it opens back up and you go through the process again and again. We have some situations in our thing where people could theoretically be on our wait list for 5 years. And I think of the Meyer where you get on in preschool. You get on a wait list in preschool, you could technically be on there for 5+ years. Even though you applied for the wait list when you were a preschooler, you technically could be on there until you're in 2nd, 3rd grade without moving. Am I saying that correctly?
Well, and I don't have any problem with that concept. I think the thing is that you're going to be taken off the wait list if you don't apply.
Correct.
And I think that language isn't in this.
Yes, what we plan to do is, if you approve this evening, Brittany and I have worked with the attorney extensively on specifically that language. So our plan is, we do have folks that are currently on a wait list as we speak for this school year. Our plan is to email all of those families with communications about the wait list will terminate at the end of this school year. And if they would like to reapply, then we'll give them directions to reapply. And that would start with the December 12th specialty school open enrollment and then continue into January for the other schools. So parents would have to consciously reapply for enrollment, open enrollment, if they choose to be on that wait list, or be accepted the following school year if vacancies exist.
So when they're placed on a wait list, then they'd receive this instruction that if you're
That is correct. That is correct. So what we're doing.
somehow, but it's not in our
Correct.
policy.
So what we will do, and that will be more in the regulation part of how we handle it on the backside of this, but we have communication plans in place that would begin after your vote to communicate with those families that are on wait lists across our various schools.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any more discussion? Mrs. Windsor?
Just because I love hypotheticals. If a child applies to go to McCamey, using the same scenario, and they don't make it in because of the enrollment capacity's been met, and they choose to go to another school, does that require the district, as they go through the list, to contact that kid and say, or that family, and say, okay, now the opening has become available?
Yes.
Yes.
Because as long as they're on the wait list for that given year, you're on the list. And if an opening comes up, then we call you as being on the wait list and saying, hey, do you want this? And at that time, the parent would have a choice. Do I keep my kid at the school that they're currently attending, or do I go to that other school? But they actually get that choice.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And we keep notes of all that. So if we were to call you and offer you a seat and you said, no, we're very happy with the school we're currently attending, then we'll say, then we're going to go ahead and remove you from that wait list.
Yeah.
And then your spot is given to the next person in line.
So having been a person that's got to make similar calls, often staff is faced with anger that we're bothering them after rejecting them essentially the first time around. So it also saves in man hours to do this.
Absolutely. We think it is going to save in man hours because we've got some folks that have been on the wait list, particularly in special education, for years and years. So at the encouragement of the attorney, and after, as you were aware, last year we had an OCR complaint around open enrollment, this is just the right direction to go to shore up the processes.
Yeah. I truly appreciate this policy because we're always looking on how we can improve systems and save man hours on things that don't need to be wasted on. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Terry?
Thank you. For those students who are on a wait list, is there any priority given to students who attend a current TD3 school? So as an example, let's say a student wants to go to McCamey, and they don't get into McCamey, and so they instead choose to go to, let's say, the New School for Arts and Academics, also here in Tempe. Would that student be on the same footing as someone who's currently at Connolly, for example?
So currently, the waitlist priority would be, if you choose to vote on this policy, within the first 10 days, let's say that applications open in December, within the first 10 days, all those folks that apply are going to be sorted in 3 categories. We're going to first sort siblings, then we're going to move and have a pile of applicants who are employees' children, and then the third set of applicants will be everybody else. So those are the 3 tiers of priority. So if we have 50 seats available, we might give the first 10 seats would go to siblings, then we still have some more seats. The next wave would go to employees' children. The third wave would go to anybody else that applies in no particular, doesn't matter where you live or what school you're applying to, you apply in your next up. And then after that 10-day window closes, then it's going to be first come, first serve. So there are no specific orders given to a Conley family wanting to go to fees or vice versa. It is just siblings, employees, and all others.
Okay, so I have 2 thoughts about that. One, if we gave priority to students who aren't currently in district, that would then bring another student into the district. But if we're giving priority to students who aren't in the district, that's incentive then if they don't get into their first choice to just go ahead and leave the district and go somewhere else. I'm wondering if there's any merit to, or if there's any advantage to differentiating between those students who choose to stay in TD3 rather than those students who go down south to Kyrene or something like this.
For us, and we can run the numbers for you, but in a lot of cases, we're declining enrollment, so this rarely ever comes. McCamey is the one place that this really comes up in Meyer, I would say, especially in the earlier years in Meyer. But for everywhere else, we pretty much have openings. And by doing this, what we run into is you're a family who has a student at McCamey right now, and now you have a sibling that's coming up, and they don't get in because how the program is first come, first serve, and you were working, and you didn't put in, you were at work, and the window came open, and so now you're forced as a family to say, my kid, I want him to be in TD3, but I don't want one of my kids here and one of my kids there. And so what ends up happening is they don't get into McCamey, and then they make the choice of, I'm just going to take both my kids and go somewhere else. So that's why the sibling piece, because we never want a family to have to make a choice, like we want to retain them. Then the next piece comes with us where we see it is like, okay, now the sibling, now you have employee kids and stuff like that. Like, all right, we want to retain our employees and give them that stability there. But it's only a handful where we get to where we can't like meet that need. And that's where I think it has a part where it's a lottery. If we had more seats, more people than we have seats, as long as you got in that window, and that's why we say the 10 days. So after the 10-day window, so you had ample time. So even if you worked and you missed it, as long as you got it in that 10 days, you have a chance to get your kid there. And it only goes into effect if we have more people than seats. So at McCamey is the main one where we have 150 seats. If we get 200 kids and they all get it at that time, then that's when we do the priority, siblings knock that out and stuff like that. And then it is a lottery, and we haven't had to do that, but then we'll be here in the boardroom and having a show and videotaping it so people can see that we pulled the numbers and stuff like that to get there, and then everybody gets on the wait list after that. But in most cases, even at McCamey, we hit the wait list and get kids in. It's not a thing for us. I hope it becomes a thing. That's right. And that's why we developed the policy, because if it becomes a thing, but we really have openings pretty much everywhere.
Yes, McCamey currently does have about 30 students on the wait list for sixth grade. And when I looked at the date stamp of when those applicants came in, a lot of those came in the April, May, June timeframe of folks that remain on the wait list. When we met with the attorney, we've actually spoken with 2 attorneys about this just to cross-check and make sure that we had our ducks in a row in doing this. Neither of them brought up the recommendation that in-district or out-of-district would have leveled priority. It was after siblings and employees, then everyone else is treated the same in terms of that prioritization.
And I just say, we have a lot of students within our district that actually go to a district school that is not their school. So we already have a ton of that to begin with. And so most of our kids, we tend to keep them if they're there. We rarely run into this, but I hope this is another problem that we come to you and say, we have a problem. Everybody wants to come to our schools, and we need to do something, add more sections or something.
That's correct. One of the things that we did discuss, but we chose not to implement, is that once you are approved for open enrollment and you remain at that school, you do not have to apply annually. Some of the districts make every year you have to reapply for open enrollment. And as Dr. Driscoll said, we've got about 4,000 students that are in school under open enrollment, not necessarily from out of district coming to us. That's about 1,000. But families within district that choose a school that's not their home school. And to ask all those 4,000 to annually reapply seemed to be a barrier and was not a direction that we were considering going. And so this is only for new applicants to come in and follow this process. Once you're approved and you're at the school, you're good to go. And we felt very strongly and felt that that was important.
Thank you both. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further questions? Okay, so I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor? Aye, motion passes. 10.01, board information. Mrs. Windsor, you look like you're freezing.
I am freezing.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I think my nose is about to fall off. I wanted to ask a first question. With the track meet tomorrow, McClintock, correct?
Yes.
It's on even if it rains?
It's on, rain or shine. We're looking at it stopping raining about 8:30, but I was over there today, like no cooling. The track is really well irrigated, they've got turf. So, and then we have our canopies, and then we brought rags to clean up all the furniture, so we'll be ready to go. We have like every possible scenario.
They have a track? Oh, we don't, do we have a track?
Not yet.
Sorry, shameless
okay.
plug, shameless plug.
And then I also wanted to report that I walked Connolly this week to discuss with some teachers some concerns they had about the, what's the word? It's getting late. Blueprints, the blueprint plans. And thank you, Dr. Driscoll, for being okay with me talking to Dr. Nussbaum, thank you. And also, I met this afternoon with a community member who had some concerns about the 95% phonics program. And I was wanting to know if we could have and it's not the curriculum, because we approved the curriculum, it's the implementation of the curriculum. So,
Yeah.
thank you, that's it.
Mr. Lemon?
Thank you, Madam President. When I came in the building this evening, I wanted to get a drink of water, and I looked at the drinking fountain and said, "Do not use, we're changing the filters." And it reminded me of Friday night, I went down to Tucson for an environmental justice meeting, and some people have been teachers, and they were told, well, at our school, we were told, don't ever drink that water. And there was a lot of illness down there and some other issues, so I'm glad that we have filtration from that standpoint. The other thing is, this weekend, Dr. Driscoll sent us what he's been doing for the last couple of weeks. It's very thorough, very involved, lots of pages. And I texted back that he probably never saw his family while he was writing all this and documenting it. And he said, "Oh yeah, I did. I was home with the girls this whole weekend." And then, but I didn't say, were they happy when your wife came back?
Yes, they were.
And finally, Mr. Ed Jones passed away, a longtime employee here in the district, and my condolences to the family and the people that he's worked with for 16 years. Thank you.
Mr. Terry?
Thinking about drinking fountains and the way schools used to be, I often just wonder when was this golden age of education that people seem to reference, and it wasn't a thing. Like, I remember when I was in kindergarten, it was half day, and we took naps at kindergarten. We had our milk time and everything, and it was just very unserious. And now it's full day, and kids have reading standards and goals to be met and everything, and it's just so much more serious than it used to be. And when you look at test scores specifically, from our Black and Hispanic test scores, they're so much higher than they used to be, and our overall scores on the NAEP at least peaked in 2012, and now they're back down to where they were when I graduated high school, which is in 2001. So I just don't know when this golden age was, and I feel like our schools are doing fine. Like they really are. You can't just keep growing every single year. I mean, infinite growth in a finite system is cancer. It's not possible. So I think that our schools are doing just fine, and I just want to make sure we don't romanticize our own childhoods and remember only the good. Like, I was in high school in the 90s, my music students used to say, "You're so lucky, there was so much great music in the 90s." I'm like, yeah, there was, but I went to a Vanilla Ice concert, so we got to remember that existed too. Hey, Mickey, you're so fine. Like, there was some stuff that wasn't great. We have to remember that too. It's a good tune. That's fine. And then, just for the record, I just wanted to state, Friday is going to be my last day at ASU. I've accepted a new job as the choir director at McClintock High School. So they haven't had a choir director all year. Their choir director got hired at ASU to be a choir director, but you've probably seen on the news there are thousands of jobs in this state that are still unfilled. And I just kind of assumed they would get someone great to fill that role, and they didn't. So since nobody great was available, they got me. And I look forward to having a strong partnership with our middle schools over here as well. Thanks.
Congratulations, Mr. Terry. I think it's awesome. You're a great music teacher. I would like to thank Jesse and all the bus drivers this week. You've had a tough week. Personally, my condolences to the Jones family, a longtime employee with us. And I would also like to thank the parents and grandparents and family members who had to wait maybe a little bit longer to get their kids from the bus this week and stuff. And thank everybody for understanding. I didn't get any emails this week saying, I don't understand it or whatever. I just want to thank everyone for being kind and doing their best with what we've been given this week. And Jesse, good job. Please tell all the bus drivers bravo to them, because I know they lost a friend too. I'd like to thank the schools that did career days. I know there's been a few of them. And I'd like to thank the parents and the grandparents and the aunts and uncles who came in and shared their career. I did hear some kids say, oh, I didn't even know you could get paid to do that. And that was exciting, right? And some of the parents would follow it up with, if you do well in math, or you do well in English, or you do well in music, this too can be a job. So that was kind of fun. I enjoyed going to the Native American meeting. That you guys have a meeting, is it once a quarter, once a month? Once a month, okay. So I've really enjoyed being a part of that. And this last one was on Kit Peak. I'd like to thank the Kit Peak representatives for coming down and sharing that information with us, and the relationship that we have with the nations and with science and with education, and how it's important for us to all respect each other, and how it's even more beautiful, and understanding the stars, and how there's ways that we're all living our life right now that come from that culture, right, and our beliefs. So I'm enjoying that, and I'd like to thank Kit Peak for sending someone down to do that with us. Connolly Fall Carnival, bravo. My gosh, I was there at the start and at the end, and I still didn't get through it all. They had was it a llama or something? It was crazy, and we were dancing, and we could play games, and I'd like to thank DLR and Core Construction for being there to talk to family members and community members on the remodel. Bravo. That was fun. Ruby Bridges walks. I was able to join Broadmoor this week. I know Ward, I believe, did theirs too. I had to share the love. I did Ward last time, did Broadmoor this time. Great turnout, and it was just nice to see that we can give a check on history and recognize either how far we've come, where we need to go, or how far we haven't come. But the kids were awesome. We had parents who came out. We had Cartel Coffee who came and gave coffee to every single person that wanted it. So it's a community thing that I was grateful to attend and be invited to. Thanksgiving lunch today. Holy mackerel, thousands, right? We had thousands of parents who wanted to participate and came, and nutrition services, bravo, because you just fed so many more people, and the food was great, and my son even told me that he'd rather have this Thanksgiving dinner than the one that I make. So, with that, but that's okay. I'm not a cook, and I wasn't too. It was okay. It was actually really good, and I ate 2 things of mashed potatoes, and I don't usually eat mashed potatoes. So bravo, our food is awesome. I already did my whole speech on showing up, and now you all know that if you don't show up and your kids doesn't get there, then it can affect our funding, and if our funding is affected, then my kid is affected, your kid's affected, everybody's kids are affected, our school scores go down, and it's just all around crappy. So get your kid to school. Visit the middle schools coming up. If you haven't looked on Parent Square and you haven't seen on Facebook and all of those things, it's going to start the first week of December. Make sure that if your kid is transitioning into middle schools, that you go to all of those open houses. I know we all have things in the evening, but I promise you it's worth putting your child into that environment and just to see how do they feel, what are they doing, and just to learn more about it. The applications for a lot of our schools open on December 12th. So it's important to go back through Parent Square and look through. I know you don't like all the flyers, but this is one flyer that I want to make sure that you check it out. And I'm not just pointing you out, but sometimes I don't like all the flyers either. It's a very important flyer. Check out your flyer. I just wrote absenteeism 6 times on here. You can tell I'm having an issue. With that said, I would like to wish everyone, I don't think we meet again until after this holiday. So I'd like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Be aware of your neighbors, friends, people, kids. We have families going through a lot. And for some of us, it means Thanksgiving dinner, and for some of us, it doesn't. So I'm begging for the community to just wrap around each other, help each other out. You see somebody in need, you might not have to talk to them, but maybe mention it to a principal or someone else. And just cherish the time together. Let's have a reset a little bit before we go into the holidays this next year. And that's it. Now I know I have to say words to close this all out. Hold on. This is where I mess it all up. I have a lot of words to say. Here we go again. Woo! You guys are going to be tired of me. 11.01. Announcements and upcoming events. There will be an agenda committee meeting on Tuesday, November 25th at 11 a.m. Thanksgiving break will be Wednesday, November 26th. So your kids go Monday, Tuesday. I used to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So some people were asking me that, like, are they really out on Wednesday? Wednesday, they're out. Don't show up. To Friday, November 28th, all schools and district offices will be closed. The 27th annual State of the City Address is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025, at 7:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Tempe Center for the Arts, 700 West Rio Salado Parkway in Tempe, Arizona. The next regularly scheduled governing board meeting is Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025, at 7 p.m. The annual Tempe Elementary School's Vitalant Blood Drive will take place Friday, December 12th, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Brogan Center, 1430 East Elna Ray Street, and from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. here in the Karen Arredondo Governing Board Room of the Sanchez Administration Building, 3205 South Roll Road. The ASBA 68th Annual Conference will be December 17th through the 19th, 2025, at the JW Marriott Desert Ridge Resort, 5353 East Marriott Drive, Phoenix, Arizona, 85054. And winter break, whew, that's crazy, will begin December 22nd, 2025. School will resume in the next year on Tuesday, January 6, 2026. The Tempe Elementary Love Your Heart 5K, sponsored by TEEA, will be held Saturday, February 14th on Valentine's Day, 2026 at 8 a.m. at the Kiwanis Park, 5500 South Mill Avenue in Tempe, Arizona. And 12.01, do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving.